Good afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone to the December 8, 2016 meeting of the City County Planning Board. Would you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Today's meeting is being broadcast live by Winston-Salem TV Digital Media. It will be rebroadcast at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning and again at 4 p.m. Sunday afternoon. Our first order of business today is the consent agenda. These are items for which the petitioner is requesting withdrawal or continuance, or items which staff has recommended approval and no one has signed up in opposition. For our public hearings today, each side will have a total of 12 minutes. There is no rebuttal period. Once the board has gone into work session, no one will be permitted to speak unless a planning board member asks a question. For general use zoning requests, the planning board must consider the full range of uses allowed in the district. Therefore, the petitioner may not refer to a specific use. For special use district zoning request, however, the petitioner must identify the intended use or uses and give specific details on how the property will be developed. Votes taken by the planning board today are recommendations that go forward to the elected officials for their consideration of the items under Section B of our agenda. If you're addressing the board today, before you begin your comments, please give us your name, address, and zip code for the record. First order of business, approval of the minutes of the November 10 and 21 meetings. Are there any additions or corrections?
Move for approval.
Second. Motion by Mr. Mulligan, second by Mr. Lamb. In discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Now call on Aaron King to present our consent agenda.
All right. First item is B2, zoning docket W3311, and this is a request to rezone a little over half an acre from RS9 to RM8, special use and limited zoning. And you can see the subject property there on the west side of Reedsville Road. It's just north of Rickard Road, surrounded by RS9 zoning, and then a little pocket of business zoning to the south that contains a convenience store and I believe a car wash. A little bit of history on this site. At one point it was zoned RM8S for a daycare center. It actually opened up, operated for a while, and then it was rezoned back to RS9. So this request would take it back to RM8L for a child daycare center, and the other use listed was single-family residential. Based on that path and based on those uses, staff is supportive of this RM8L zoning request.
Okay. Is anyone here opposed to this recommendation? Seeing none, declare the public hearing closed.
Move approval. Second.
Motion, Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Mulligan. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Next item is B3. It's zoning docket W2985, and this is a final development plan for an office building for a limited industrial special use zone site. And this is owned by NCDOT. It's at the northeast corner of Polo Road and Cherry Street. And you can see the overall campus there shown in yellow. What is before you today is specifically is about a 1 acre site. It's at the corner of Cherry and Polo. And this is the site plan that was submitted with that request. It's for about a 5,400 square foot modular office building. Again, Cherry Street would be to the left in this image, and then Polo Road would be to the bottom of this image. And it's also got the associated parking spaces and access along with that. These are the elevations that were submitted with this request. So the north-facing elevation, that would face internal towards the parking lot. South elevation would face towards Polo Road. This does meet all minimum UDO requirements, and it complies with the first phase conditions, and staff recommends approval of this final development plan.
And this is a final development plan, so we will not go forward. This is the vote to be taken here today. So, is anyone here opposed to this recommendation? Seeing none, declare the public hearing closed.
Move approval. Second.
Motion, Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Mulligan. Any discussion? Yes.
Yes, I had a question. I could not tell from the site plan exactly what kind of landscaping there was going to be. It looked like there was one large maple tree in the parking lot, and I couldn't tell what else beyond that in terms of trees.
Gary, you got the full size one there. You want to add to that?
There's a tree in the center of the back parking lot. There's also 2 other trees in the upper right.
Yeah, I saw those 2. I saw the giant ones.
Yes.
Okay.
And then along Cherry Street, they will have a street yard there. and there's already a 3-foot berm that's landscaped along Polo and on a portion of Cherry Street. I don't know the number of trees that are on that berm, but there are some shrubs along there. I think at least one tree along that berm. That's not actually required because the building has no parking in between it, but that was shown on the first phase approval.
So it meets all the requirements for the tree ordinance?
Yes, just the street yard trees and one tree within 75 feet of every parking
Okay,
space. And
because
that's
of
that big center island.
All
in
right.
back.
All right, you've answered my question. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments? We have a motion for approval. All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Next item is B4. It's zoning docket W3312, and this is a request to rezone a little under 3 acres from limited business special use to general business special use. You can see the subject property there on the north side of Robin Hood Road in yellow, just a little bit west of Whitaker Ridge Drive. On the north side of Robin Hood, you've got some commercial zoning in there, HBS zoning, and then to the south, you've got mostly residential zoning and then a little bit of office zoning there. This request is for storage services retail. It would be a completely indoor facility. You can see it located roughly in the middle of that site. It's 2 stories on the front, 3 stories on the back, and roughly 100,000 square feet in size. 2 access points onto Robin Hood with circulation around the building, and then a minimal amount of parking there in the front for the office area. And these are the elevations that were submitted with this request. Staff does recommend approval of this special use zoning request.
Is anyone here opposed to this recommendation? Seeing none, declare the public hearing closed.
Move approval. Second.
Motion by Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Mulligan. Any discussion?
Yeah, I had some questions too. I thought I read that you recommended a monument sign, and there were some lighting conditions.
Correct. The signage would be limited to 1 monument sign with a maximum height of 6 feet and a maximum copy area of 36 square feet. And there was a lighting condition as well.
Okay, could the sign be electronic is what I wanted to know.
Yes.
It could be.
It could be with the rate of change at 1 change every 2 hours. But
Right.
it could be electronic.
Okay. And they are committing to the design that's in the picture?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, any other question? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to commend Stemmel for the work they did with the community around this. This could have potentially been a very controversial piece, and I think it was well handled before it came to planning board with that community response and trying to bring people together. We won't hear that because it's on the consent, but that was well done.
Is it a precast building, or is it
No.
masonry and steel?
Any other comments? We have a motion for approval. All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Next item is B5. It's zoning docket W3313. This is a request to rezone about 3/4 of an acre from general industrial to limited business. And the site's there in yellow. It's on the south side of Country Club Road between Stires Ferry and Meadowlark. You can see it's already in an area of GI zoning, and there's a mixture of commercial uses and commercial zoning around it. Area plan does recommend commercial for the site, and staff is supportive of this general use LB zoning request.
Anyone here opposed to this recommendation? Seeing none, declare the public hearing closed.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Mulligan. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
We're going to skip planning board review, item C1. We're going to come back to that at the end of the consent agenda, and we'll go ahead and start with C2. This is PBR 2016-07, and this is a request for public school and IP zoning. This is the Paisley site. You can see there to the north is Gillette Street, and to the east is Thurman Street, and to the south is 11th, and then back to the west is the Children's Home campus. You can see the existing Paisley School there on the northern portion of the site. And this is a site plan that's been submitted with this request. It's oriented differently than the map, so Gillette Street's to the right, Thurman's to the bottom of the screen, 11th is to the left, and then the Children's Home campus is to the top of the site. Bus parking area kind of up in this this corner of the site. Play area out front. The building moves towards the middle of the site. with the parking area to the south of that, and then a main access off of Thurmond into the site. The track area and the field would be located there at the bottom portion of the site, and then stormwater would be handled over on that far, I guess, western line. Staff has reviewed this. It does meet minimum UDO requirements, and we recommend approval of this request.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Mulligan. Any questions? Any comments?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd just like to go on record. Having run the children's home and having worked with Mr. Stimmel on a master plan that looked at some of the elements there, the issue of stormwater is huge in this area. It was not addressed with the current school building, and many times the area behind that would get 6 feet of water in a tributary to Peters Creek and run all the way across Renolda Road or down actually northwest, and just uncontrolled go right into Peters Creek, causing all kinds of problems. It looks like they're taking a major approach toward stormwater here, because all of that area just heads right toward where those ponds are there. So I would just encourage staff, look at that very carefully as they do their stormwater plan on that. We could, with this upgrade, make a real difference to Peters Creek and our neighbors down south of us.
Thanks, sir. Any other comments? A motion for approval. Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Next item is D1, and this is subdivision 2015-004. This is Meadowlark Estates. It's a little 10-lot subdivision on the east side of Meadowlark, basically across from Brookberry Farms. This got a major subdivision approval from the planning board last year. The developer has requested that approval be withdrawn. The staff is supportive of that withdrawal request.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Mulligan to allow the withdrawal. Any comments? All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Okay. David Reed is going to come up to present item C1.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is a request to make a modification to an approved subdivision. This is the subdivision was approved in 2000, Salem Springs subdivision. Most of it is built out and platted. It's all actually platted except for this last little segment here. Location map doesn't expand out real far, but this is on this particular piece of property is on Old Lexington Road. And if I move forward here, this is the overall site plan, and in red is the area where the original plan showed a second connection. North is to the right on this map, so it's like the last one is turned sideways. There's a entrance to the subdivision further north or further to the right here. This would have been another full access point on Old Lexington, and there's an access point to the south and a connection to an adjoining subdivision. The petitioner would like to eliminate that second connection to Old Lexington Road, and they had been communicating with NCDOT about that subject for some time. Petitioner and both the petitioner and a representative from NCDOT are here, and they can here to answer any questions you have of them. Overall, the staff looked at it. We reviewed a letter that I believe you all received from NCDOT explaining reasons why they didn't feel it was necessary. Because of our requirements for connectivity ratio and because of the fact that any traffic coming down Old Lexington Road into the subdivision from this day forward would always come through that northern entrance past those few houses, and it wouldn't be spread out as much. Not knowing if any of the people who bought houses in there were aware of this plan and that there was a second access point, that wouldn't be there any longer. So really, because of the good connectivity it has with the current design, it was approved that way, we would recommend that the connection remain. But again, if you would like, you can, the petitioner and NCDOT are here to answer any questions you have.
I was trying to get to understand the right and left turns with this. Could you explain that a little bit? Does the entrance that was recommended help that?
There,
That was meant, the right and left turns that were mentioned in the DOT letter. And
well, I guess this would require both right and left turn lanes, and,
No, the original approval did not, right? Original approval just had a right,
no, I believe the original approval had
both?
both.
I wasn't aware.
Now, at times during the development of subdivisions, sometimes they talk to NCDOT and they talk further, do we need it or don't we need it? I don't know if some of that conversation went on with them over the years, but the original plan showed left and right,
Okay.
and it would require left and right. So the existing entrance north of this location has left and right turn lanes, and the entrance down on the south side of the development has left and right turn lanes.
And from a staff perspective, about the amount of traffic that's on Lexington at that place, at that particular access, what are your feelings on that? Have there been any traffic studies or?
No, we did not do any kind of traffic count or anything. It would just be, if you look again at the overall subdivision is 240 lots. So anything coming down on Lexington from the north, accessing that way, will all go through one entrance and then meander through the development to get to the various houses. The second entrance would allow that traffic to be dispersed more, basically.
Do we know the
I
traffic
think-
count on the existing? Do we know the traffic count right now in and out of the neighborhood on the existing?
Well, it's on average a house creates 10 trips per day. So 240 houses, 2,400 trips. It would be dispersed, both going out the south entrance over to 52, or out up Lexington Road, splitting. I don't know how evenly that's split.
And let me just clarify that the planning staff's concern is not so much born out of the external traffic movements there, because we got to rely on the traffic experts from NCDOT to kind of make those judgments. Our concern was basically, this is a fairly large subdivision. It was platted, it was planned and approved some time ago. It's basically 95% built out. And here we are at the end of it, taking out what appears to be the central entrance as originally proposed there. And it would have the effect internally to the subdivision of saying that all the traffic needs to go on these secondary entrances where people, this plan was a matter of public record, people could well have bought into this with the assumption that there was going to be this central entrance here, and now there's not. All the traffic would be coming out through that. So it's just, our concern is more, this is a very awkward time at the end of the project, just about to take out the central entrance.
There's a recorded plat. Lots have been sold and houses have been built. Is that correct?
Yeah, all but this little piece here has been platted.
Is that that's the last phase, which is what's happening right now? We're getting
Right.
ready to record the final phase.
Right. If it becomes a cul-de-sac, it will have 6 lots. If it's opened up, it will have 6 lots along it. That's the last 6 lots.
Okay, I got a question. Back to y'all were talking about the turn lanes or whatever.
Yes.
And let me just clarify that. And because I read in here about, it's going to take some land from homeowners that face the main road when it goes out, and they take those turn lanes in. Well, I shouldn't take it for granted, but I would think that was brought up on the original plan. The DOT actually says that they really don't see it, and they really, it is going to hurt the homeowners. It's going to take some of their land where they're going to have to come over and put a turn, a right and left-hand turn. And, so with what the DOT says or whatever, I would say that, it's no problem. But I understand what you're saying about it's originally the way it was originally platted, and now we come in and make a change. What is that going to set a precedence? I'm a little worried about that too. But, and also the, the minimum connectivity ratio or whatever, just a little bit below that. But you got to have guidelines to go by. And so that sort of bothers me also.
Is there an allegation that the original traffic planning work was erroneously performed or something?
I don't think so. Again, where we're coming from is just the integrity of the original plan as it was put on record from the very beginning, and now we're changing it at the very end stage.
Are there any topo issues or anything, any hardship, any reason?
Well,
Nothing?
could I ask a question of the DOT person who's here?
Just come and give us your name and address for the record, please, sir.
I'm Jeff Monks. I'm Assistant District Engineer here in Division 9. We cover Forsyth, Stokes, and David County. I was not in the office at that time, and neither was our district engineer at the time that this come through. Hope everybody understands that. Mr. Armatrap come to us, with the fact that it's just 6 lots going in. Everybody's already using the existing entrances now. So I didn't think, they're using them now. We don't think they're going to mostly go back to this main entrance. It's also, and Lee, our district engineer, as you stated in the letter, it is going to affect some of the other property owners along the road that's been there. So, but your question.
Yeah, my question was really about, it says item number 8 in the letter. It says the proposed new access off Old Lexington Road could become a cut-through for traffic heading south on Old Lexington, wanting to go to US 52. And I was wondering how serious the concern you had about that, the cut-through issue.
Well, it would be one. I mean, it's easier to cut through a subdivision sometimes than it is to come up to a major intersection, you see, because you're going to have problems there a lot of times. The trips, there's not enough traffic coming, we feel like, from south on Old Lexington to, they're going to hit that first entrance as they're coming south. They're not going to come on down to the second entrance and turning. As far as connectivity, as far as your, the shortcut, I should say, the way it is now, if you come in, they're going to have to meander through the subdivision to get back down there. Mm-hmm. If we put this other one in, it's going to be a straight right in, a left turn out, and then straight right back to
Could you show that on the map?
Yeah.
Is there a way he could point that out?
Oops. All right. So, there's the current entrance.
Can you? I mean, you can't see on here.
Yeah, maybe I can use the mouse.
Okay.
Okay, so right now, you come in this point down here, so your mouse shaking around, and then you come in and you go through here, and I guess back down this way and back. Where he's talking about is if this entrance is put in, you come down here, come through the subdivision.
There's no stop sign or anything at that first intersection?
No, I would not think so. I would
Okay.
think that would be the.
Then there's a left turn here, coming down and then popping out down here for a right turn. Otherwise, they would go down the road and make a right here. So this might have a higher speed limit than inside the subdivision, but otherwise you either go down and turn right, go in, left, right.
You also have another entrance, to the south there on Barnes Road that connects back, back through here also. So that's basically 3 entrances in this subdivision. And for 6 lots, we just don't feel like it's necessary to take people out on the main road.
Well, it's not 6 lots, there's 200, right? Or,
Well, the 6 new lots.
I
Yes,
know,
sir.
but.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you're looking at it as 6 lots, it'd be a different story. The way I see it, or whatever, it was approved, and
Keep in mind from a staff perspective, while NCDOT may see it as a cut-through, we see it as a alternative route if something is blocked between that point and Barnes Road. And again, you're making 2 turns.
Or actually 3 instead of 1.
Yeah, 3 instead of 1 on a lesser speed road versus a road with a posted speed of probably 45 and design speed of 55. And
Right, if this was a cut-through, then I would be concerned because, I mean, the argument for not allowing this is that we would be inconveniencing the people who would get the extra traffic that they weren't expecting to have. But if it turned this into a cut-through, then you're also imposing extra traffic on another group of people. So the question for me is really, is this truly a cut-through or not? If it's not, then I think that argument falls.
I personally would not think it would be a cut-through. I think that you're probably going 55. What is the name of that road? But anyway, you're going to go down that right and be on your way rather than cut through a development and make all these turns or whatever. The thing that bothers me is that it was set up like this originally, and I know things are made to be changed, but it just bothers me. If y'all could convince me though to change my mind, if it was set up originally like this. And I'm a developer. I mean, I'm telling you. I mean, it's just something that was set up originally, and now to come back and make a change here on the tail end, I'm just a little leery of it because of setting precedents.
I'm the petitioner. Can I speak to it?
Anyone like to hear from the petitioner?
Yeah.
Okay. You have a question you'd like to ask the petitioner?
Yeah. I would like to hear what he's got to say. Then I'll ask him a question.
Well, it's not a public hearing.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Armentrout, 3822 Ryan Way, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27106. Very good questions that you've asked. We were not the original designers, builders of this subdivision. I use the word inherited. We inherited this property in about 2004 or 5 because we were the contractor who built the roads and sewer and water and that sort of thing. And Platinum Builders was the original developer, and they ran into problems, and we now have that subdivision in 2005 or 6 or whatever. We were aware of the design of it. I'm not going to tell you we weren't because we were going to be the contractor. Contrary to what David said, however, I do not think that is the main entrance there. I think the main entrance was coming off Barnes Road because of it so much near to I-52. And that's where most of the traffic comes from, to be honest with you about that. When we took it over, the original, this is a little bit backwards, but Section 1 is access through that northernmost access. That's Section 1. The second section that was built is Section 4, which is accessed off of Meredith Woods, which is the furthest access through another neighborhood. Those two were built first. The main entrance was not built until we got involved, and we built it so that we could have access and have connectivity, if you will. We didn't call it that, but that's what we were aiming for, so that traffic could move through there very well. That part developed because we established that as the main entrance, and people came through there and that sort of thing. We did not necessarily delay this until the last, but it just fell into place in terms of how we were moving dirt and things like that. I had conversations with NCDOT 4 or 5 years ago about, we still have to build that other access, and yes, you do, et cetera, et cetera. I started the conversation over again in 2014 with Mr. Steve Jones, who was at that time one of the engineers there. And I had talked to the people in the planning board staff about, do I have to do it? Can I get rid of that island? It had an island in the middle of it. Who in the world wants an island? We didn't want an island, and frankly, they said they didn't want one either, so we eliminated that right off the top. We then said, okay, I'll have that design to come out there. I'll go talk to the DOT and see what they say. Well, the DOT said in 2014, we really don't want it. We don't need it.
the city wanted it to come out on our road. The DOT road is Old Lexington Road. That's a DOT road. That's why they're involved, to be honest with you. So we don't really need it. So I went back to Aaron King and said, they don't really want it. And he said, well, we got to check connectivity. So we pulled out a big map there on their thing, and we went through that, and it came out 1.18. And he said, Jim, you don't hit it, buddy. You just don't get there. So we want it. So I went back to Steve Jones, and I said, I struck out downtown. He said, well, okay, if you got to have it, we just want a right turn lane. We don't need a left turn. There's not much traffic going in that subdivision from the south. I said, okay. So we went to our engineers, and we had it designed so that it would be a right turn only coming from the north, no left turn. It would fit pretty nicely in the 60-foot right-of-way that was there already. And said, okay. So it got delayed a little bit, and this spring or this summer, I had it, and I took it to the planning board. I said, here it is. And they said, well, it's okay. And Gary Roberts said, yes, I confirm we don't want that island in there, so we're good. So I took the plans over to NCDOT that very day. And I happened to catch Jeff and Lee Puckett in the office. And we went in their conference room, and we looked at it, and Lee said, I don't want it. I don't want this. We don't need it, and I don't want it. I said, that sounds good to me. Will you stand up with me and say you don't want it, okay? And they said, yes. So that's why Jeff is here today. But they said, if you got to put it in, we want a right turn and a left turn. Because I don't know what the because is. It must be their policy. I mean, maybe it's like your connectivity policy. I don't know. But anyhow, so that's where we are. So we went back and so see about the cul-de-sac, get your design on the cul-de-sac, and we did that and took that over to Aaron, and we're here today for that. Now, we didn't add any lots by making it a cul-de-sac. We didn't subtract any lots. There are always going to be 3 on either side of that, and that's what we have now. I went out there the other day just to talk about the cut-through. If it were me or if it were my teenage grandsons or my children, I guarantee you that's a shorter route through there, and it's straight. You come on, if you take the existing one now, you wander around, stop sign, turn right, turn left, there you go. It's honestly quicker if you were to go there, if you go through Meredith Woods. If you turn there and go through Meredith Woods, because it's a lot quicker, and you cut off more distance, to be honest with you. So if I may diverge, when we did Lockhurst out in the Grandview area, Reagan High School was just being built. And we knew that when we finished that and came out on Transu Road, that was going to be a cut-through. We knew it. I mean, you knew it was going to be. So we had to design it so it went like this so nobody would go through there. And Louis Hubbard and I did that, and here, so that kids will not say, oh, we can just shoot through there, because they could have shot through there under the original design. I guess what I'm saying is that is so much, in my mind, a cut-through. And it will be, because you don't have to go past the church and turn right and all that sort of thing. So that's why we're here. The DOT, I loved what they said about we don't need it. I'll be honest with you, we're talking about a lot of money. Talking about a lot of money. So we don't think we need it. I know you have a rule about connectivity. I would say to you rhetorically, if I brought that project to you today and I didn't own any land where that circle is, would you approve me? Would you approve my subdivision if I only owned the other land and I did not own that land that came out there with 1, 2, 3 accesses rather than 4? That's a rhetorical question, but based upon my knowledge of how you all work, I think you would have.
Thank you very much.
Questions?
Well, I was going to ask you about the right and turn lane, because I thought, well, maybe we could work this out with just the right turn in or whatever, but you just answered my question about the DOT. They're not going to accept that, whether it's either all or nothing, it sounds like. And I appreciate you sharing that with us, because it clears up a lot of our problem, our situation, as I've already said, just to explain to you, and I don't mean to be speaking for the board here, but the way I feel about it is, yeah, we're dropping around below that 1.2. That's one thing. And the other thing is this plat was approved with that inference or whatever. And, yeah, I agree with you. If you bring it to us, and, I know how you inherited this. I know how all that works. So, yeah. But at the same time, I'm going to have to see what my constituents say about it.
I perfectly understand that.
But you made a good spiel, and I'm thinking. 'Cause
Thank you.
I don't know. Like I said, the only thing that bothers me is what's already happened. But you guys can help me here, I'm sure.
Well, Aaron, I want to hear more. Go back about connectivity because it seems that's more what it's hinging on is upholding that. Though, if you round it, you get 1.2. Do you never round it? If you look at the intended purpose of it, I understand a lot of it has to do with first responders and access. Can you predict which direction that would be coming in, how this would affect all of that?
So 1.2 is the minimum standard that's put in the UDO for connectivity. And as Jim correctly stated, I think when we put this on the table and went through the whole exercise, we came out to 1.18, which is obviously below that. I don't know that we've had a case that's been that close where we've had to round it or look at that question before. I mean, Chris, I don't know if you or Gary, if you guys remember any of that. Usually when we when we and the board have made exceptions to go below that 1.2, it's been because of topography, lighting pattern, things of that nature. So that's generally been the case. In this case, it was approved, and there's really no topography, there's no lighting issues that we generally rely on when we go below 1.2. So that's kind of where we're at on that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like NCDOT's policy has changed from the next to the last time that the developer talked to NCDOT to the last time, from the one turn lane to both turn lanes. But the original plan was approved with both turn lanes. Right?
It sounds like that's correct, yes.
Well, I'm not in a position to go that far. The people who are there often determine how they interpret the policy. So the policy may be the same. The interpretation or the expectation or the desire may be different.
So as it is now, without developing that last phase that included that connection, we're fine. It's there, it's approved, its patterns are established. So where we really are with this is if in the construction of the last build-out phase, as you were describing that road goes with it. So now we don't have the road, and I guess it's taken time, as a lot of these have, to build this out. So it could exist as it is without that connectivity, minus these 6 lots forever, without any issues.
Correct, yes.
There's no time frame on it.
When was the last house built?
I'd defer to Jim on that one.
They are building now in sections,
Is it still building?
some in 4, some in 2, and some in 3. But they're building. There are a lot of them. I was out there over the weekend, and there are probably 24 houses under construction.
Well, how old is this plat? When was this originally?
I think he said 2000. I believe that's what I heard him say.
I didn't hear that. Sorry.
And it was doing pretty well early on, and then after we took over, the troubles came. What I call the troubles hit 2008, 2009, and nothing was being built.
Right.
Just one quick note, back to that ratio of 1.2. That was something that we settled on several years ago when we updated the street standards, but really staff was shooting for a higher ratio. Several other larger municipalities have one more like 1.1 to 5. It's higher than we have. That's our standard is 1.2, but that's the really a minimum standard. And just one other comment, we have homeowners out here right now, say for instance these property owners here that are living here, if this connection is not made, then whoever lives there is going to bear the brunt, as they are now, of all this traffic that wants to go in this direction coming by their house. if this connection is made, it's going to absorb and diffuse that traffic and spread it out. So these people don't have to bear that brunt of everybody else coming by their house. I imagine there's probably only a sidewalk on one side of the road. So if you've got small children and you're on the side of the road without a sidewalk, you're having all of this traffic here coming by those single houses.
Just as an asterisk to that, there may be some sidewalks in Section 1, but those sidewalks were not required here, so that there are no sidewalks other than voluntary ones that were put in by the original contractor, developer, 2000, 2001, 2002.
That would have been before the sidewalk requirement.
So the original subdivision was done before we had this 1.2 definitive number to evaluate connectivity.
Correct.
So the process we've gone through is that wasn't in place. It's requested to be reevaluated. You evaluate it against current numbers, and it did not. The 1.8, the
1.18.
The
yeah.
1.18, you considered the significant enough difference not to round it and say that it can meet the standards.
From a staff approval or from a staff recommendation, staff approval standpoint, correct.
What I'm trying to understand is what is that numerical standard that it's not meeting on the ground? What does that represent? Does it represent certain the factors that go into that calculation? I know the distances and the intersections are applied, but
It's a ratio of, the way the ordinance defines it, it's a ratio of links over nodes. So a link is basically any section of street that exists between two nodes, and a node is basically any intersection. So you basically calculate the number of links, divide that by the number of nodes, and that's how you quantify that connectivity.
And a perfect index, I believe, is a ratio of just 2, where there's no dead ends. A perfect network, where there's no dead ends is a 2.
Downtown grid.
Right, downtown grid, where it absorbs and diffuses the traffic.
so the number of cul-de-sacs
That lowers your ratio,
is
right.
affecting
That's
what we're
correct.
seeing as far as the actual flow through, but then you've got the dead ends. I'm trying to really grasp what about this would be significant enough for that, what seems to be a small numerical number
And
to make this decision.
And to reiterate what Mr. Armentrout did say, he is correct. If he came in today and he did not own this piece of property, and there was no other way to make a connection anywhere else, or no other ways to connect streets, to get rid of a cul-de-sac, to make another intersection, I mean, it would be one of those situations where we would say it doesn't meet it, but there's no other way to do it.
Right.
But again, that's not the case because he does have the land to do it. So I just want to say he is correct. If he came in and he didn't own this land, we would work with him to see if there was another solution. But if not, we would say this is the best we can do.
If you, just looking at the site plan, you've got two pretty short cul-de-sacs, but the distance on the cul-de-sac doesn't count in the formula, it sounds like. It sounds like it's just...
Right, the same long cul-de-sacs count as the same short. I mean, they're viewed in the process as the same.
Trying to look at this
Right.
and figure out why, if it's that close.
Yeah, I think the
not
general
meeting.
principle is that by having a lot of cul-de-sacs, it's forcing more traffic onto fewer through streets.
So what I'm looking at is 6 lots, either on a cul-de-sac or on a connection. The connection obviously benefits the neighborhood. The cul-de-sac doesn't from a traffic, as the point Gary just made about diffusing that traffic on that street.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm seeing here now, is we're talking about the planning staff, or what we're looking at is the inner development of this development, and the DOT is looking at the main roads.
Right.
Like
Right.
Polly came on.
It's a different perspective.
Yeah.
We have to, I mean, mindful of that, but we have to think about the history of this and how it works internally.
Yeah, because, we always, you all know this, I mean, we depend on DOT all the time. We ask them to come up, what about the traffic? What about the traffic? We want to know what the traffic is, whatever. And people talk about that, so we really appreciate their input. And when I read what they put in here or whatever, I didn't, But here now, I put it all together here. Okay, I'll shut up. Go ahead, guys. I want to hear more.
Unrecorded, apologize.
Go ahead.
Unrecorded successive phases of a subdivision are always up or redesigned prior to recordation of that phase.
Mhm.
Okay, I'd move approval.
What I was going to point out was staff's concern about those who live near the northern entrance, which I got confused. Is that Bryan Road?
This turn.
Oh, that. Okay, so the concern was what you just pointed out, that a lot of people would go through that way as opposed to some of those people being able to go through the proposed. Okay. That's what people have been doing now. How many people live there now? Didn't you say 200 or?
In the subdivision?
Well, yes.
I think it's going to, the build out will be 240. I would say to you that probably 180 to 190 people live there now. Houses, residential units, I'm sorry.
And have there been concerns raised by any of them about?
They've not been raised to me. I was in charge of the homeowners association for a long time. That was a challenge, but nobody raised that issue. I am no longer involved in that. They have their own, they run it themselves. I have been dealing with them over the last 4 years with their management all, and nobody has raised that issue, no.
And many of the people who live there have lived there for 4 years or more?
I would say about a third to a half of the people have lived there, or those houses have been available for people to live there for 10 years.
Mr. Lamb made a motion to
I did,
approve.
and just real quickly, I am not in favor of cutting down accesses. I mean, the planning staff has sold me on the concept of connectivity. It really makes sense. But having said that, it's unrecorded phase of the subdivision. We allow developers to come in with new designs on unrecorded phases, and staff has even indicated we would probably approve this if someone had retained a little spite strip down there to where you couldn't get out to the road. So, I do move approval.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Lamb, second by Mr. Young. Yes.
Are there any people here in opposition to this?
It wasn't.
No public because of the.
Keep in mind, subdivision approvals or changes to subdivisions aren't public hearing items.
So no neighbors were notified or anything of that. It wasn't that type of hearing. And that's a good point. That's a good point, that, they do come in, like this for.
Of later phases.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's routine, but it certainly is not completely unheard of.
Mm-hmm. And the
Market
1.2,
conditions change and all kinds of stuff.
the 1.2 was, you said that wasn't even in effect whenever the,
Correct, yes.
right, so that wasn't even in effect. So, okay.
What's the, just quickly, what's the, with the road, what's the ratio with the road, with the connection? It's 1.2.
It is.
1.2.
It's at least one.
Okay.
And it's 1.875 with
1.18.
1.18.
Yeah, 1.8.
1.18.
So you,
Okay. We have a motion for approval. Is there any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It passes 6-3, I believe. Okay? All right.
Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Go on.
All right, next item on your agenda. Sorry about that. Next item on the agenda is zoning docket F-1564, and petitioner is Bill Katzis and Dina Katzis. The site is 3.52 acres located on the west side of NC 66, south of Yorktown Road. And the request is a special use limited no site plan rezoning from RS30 to HBL Highway Business Special Use. This is Legacy's growth management plan. You can see it's located within the growth management area 3, suburban neighborhoods in the southeastern portion of the county. It's along Highway 66, which is not a growth corridor, and it's in the Abbott's Creek watershed. This is a zoning map showing the subject property there in yellow. Some of you may recognize this case. It came before you, a very similar request for highway business about 3 years ago. Just a brief history. For many years, this site was operated as a legal, non-conforming landscaping business. However, that non-conforming status has been lost because the use ceased for more than 1 year. About 4 years ago, activity started to resume on the site. We received a complaint, sent them a notice of violation, and they came in, the property owners came in for a rezoning request to highway business. At that time, planning staff, looking at the area plan, recommended denial of the request, and we also had a spot zoning opinion from the county attorney. And so the petitioners withdrew the request at your September 2013 meeting. Since that time, activity has recently picked back up on the site. We have received another complaint, notify the property owners of that violation, and therefore you have the request before you today. This is an aerial photograph from 2014 showing the subject property. It's in a typically suburban portion of the county along Highway 66, mostly single-family homes in the general area. This is the Southeast Forsyth County area plan update, same area plan that was in effect in 2013 for the original request. As you can see, the recommendation for the area is for yellow, single-family, low-density residential on the subject property and the surrounding properties. Just in the upper left, you see that blue area there. That is the portion that is within the town of Kernersville. It's about 0.6 miles away. These images are taken on site. This is looking at there, standing at the edge of Highway 66 into the site. You can see some of the structures associated with the landscaping business there and parking of landscaping vehicles. This is looking north on Highway 66, across the road, looking south on Highway 66. In the adjacent neighborhoods, this is directly north on Yorktown. In the background there, the site is located just beyond that basketball goal there in the backyard. To the south of the site, this is on Venus Road looking north. They're at the terminus of Venus there looking into the site. Again, the Southeast Forsyth County Area Plan update recommends low-density residential land use for this site. Highway business zoning and the proposed commercial uses are incompatible with the surrounding low-density residential development. In that very first slide, I showed you the uses that they're requesting. Services A, Services B, building contractor, general. But primarily the nursery, lawn, garden supply store is the most intense use. That requires the highway business zoning. That's often associated with off-site negative impacts such as noise, vibration from the equipment, dust and glare, and traffic, and also odors associated with the mulch. If approved, the request could lead to other commercial rezonings in this general area. The county attorney has once again rendered an opinion that if this site was to be approved and challenged, it could be determined to be illegal spot zoning. And we did contact the Kernersville Planning Department, and they concur with planning staff's recommendation, which is for denial. And I do need to just briefly mention that there's an additional condition that we need to insert there prior to issuance of occupancy permits, just above other requirements in regard to compliance with DOT driveway permit. If this is approved, they would have to get an NCDOT driveway permit. And so this is just a typical follow-up condition that they must meet all requirements prior to occupancy permits. So So planning staff does recommend denial, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
How long was it operated as I'm familiar with the property, but how long was it operated as a nursery?
Well, they had to prove prior to 1966, so at least up to around 97 or 98, it was used that way, as far as we can determine legally.
20 or 30 years
Yes,
as a
yes.
nursery.
Yeah.
And I know there haven't been any new lots created in subdivisions on either side of that road in 40 years, or 30 years anyway. So, I mean, I'm just wanted to make sure that is correct. It's been operated as a nursery forever, except it lost its grandfathering by non-use for how long?
You have to go more, if you go more than a year without operating that business, you lose your non-conforming status.
How long has it been?
That took place somewhere around 98, 99, and then, so it's hard to say exactly when it lost that status.
Any other questions of staff at this time? Okay, this is a public hearing. First person, or the only person signed up, Mr. Katzis. Mrs. Katz. Okay.
Hello, my name is Theodora Katzis. I'm the daughter of Bill and Dina Katzis, who own the property on Beeson Creek Crossing on Highway 66 South.
Excuse me, Ms. Katz, please give us your address.
7493 Watkins Ford Road, Kernersville, North Carolina 27284.
Thank you.
I do want to welcome everybody and thank the authorities and my neighbors for taking their time to be here today with us. The reason why we are here is for the rezoning of the Beeson Creek property on Highway 66 South. By doing that, we want to keep the property clean, free of any critters, rodents, snakes, etc. Mr. Craig Taylor, who is here with us today, owns a landscaping business. He simply wants to park his vehicles on this site. And in return, he will be cleaning the property, keeping it, clear of any rodents, snakes, whatever. And I do want to promise our neighbors and you, the board, there will not be any noises or any type of environmental pollution. There will simply be lights, power, and water at this site as if you guys decide to rezone this property as HBL. Again, we want to keep this, if you decide to rezone this particular property that my parents own, we want to keep it very simple. Mr. Craig Taylor wants to simply keep his trucks parked on the property. We're not looking to build any buildings on that site. We want to keep it the way it is. What he does is parks his trucks there. He keeps it clean. That's all he does. And of course, there is special recommendations once it's rezoned HBL. We will have to put trees and bushes around it. We will do that, and it'll make the property look very beautiful for the neighbors. And I don't think it's going to cause any trouble for anybody that lives around that property. We also have we do have some fruit trees that are on the property itself that the church comes, during the year and gathers them to make some pies for their festivals. And my parents also have this request. If you decide to rezone it as HBL, let's say, my parents will keep it and will keep Mr. Craig Taylor on the property. His vehicle's parked there. He's going to park it overnight, use it whatever he needs to during the daytime. Let's say they sell it tomorrow, this property. It will go back to residential status-ship like it was before. And that is the special request that my parents want to add into this. I mean, this is a special request. We're not asking to build huge steel buildings or make it to where it produces any noise or there's any type of environmental damage, anything that will cause environmental damage around the neighborhood itself. It's just a simple request. I mean, you can actually ask Mr. Craig Taylor what he does as a business. You can ask my dad, Mr. Bill Katzis, ask him questions about the property itself. I mean, we've been battling this for a couple of years now, and we're very simple people, and we do respect our neighbors. We respect them. We respect their rights, their space, everything. We respect human rights, everything. If you can, I mean, if this could be something that you could take into consideration, something, I mean, we're not asking anything. I don't know. I simply believe that, I do believe that the city of Winston-Salem is making this way too complicated, and it's not supposed to be that complicated. I mean, we're, like I mentioned to Mr. Gregg or Mr. Aaron in the zoning department, that, Mr. Craig here, Craig Tucker, he's just parking his trucks there. He's keeping the property clean, trimmed. We planted some corn in the back. We're sharing with the neighbors there. I also wanted to mention that I had a chance to meet with some of the neighbors, and they were not in opposition of us, maybe changing the zoning, HBL, I mean, from residential status to HBL status. But, the question is, why are we doing this? We were fined $100. And then second, the reason why we want to, zone it HBL statusship is to legally keep Mr. Craig Taylor on the property itself, have his trucks parked there, and not have any trouble with the city, because we want to be in accordance with the city of Winston-Salem. That's all we really care about. By zoning it HBL, we can keep Mr. Craig Taylor there and have him legally park there. Again, if you have any questions, you can ask Mr. Craig or my dad any questions you have. It's just a simple request. We're not here to make it very complicated for anybody. And we do respect your opinions, and we do respect the laws of the city of Winston-Salem. And I do want to thank you. And if you, again, have any questions for me, please ask me any questions. Yes.
I have a question, Ms. Katzis. So in the agenda book that we received, it mentioned that you had some conversation with some of your neighbors?
Yes.
It wasn't a meeting or anything, but you had conversations?
Yes, I did.
Tell me about those conversations.
They asked me the question, why are you going to rezone the property? Because there was one neighbor, this is where it all started from, that started complaining about having Mr. Craig Taylor's trucks on the property. And he didn't sell any mulch, any rock, anything that is heavy material that is associated with a landscaping business. He simply parked his trucks there and went about his business to trim lawns and do whatever he needs to do with his business. I think the neighbor, was like, oh, his trucks were parked there and it's causing a lot of trouble. I mean, it's only three vehicles. Is it 3 vehicles? Three vehicles, yes. Only 3 vehicles. And I just found it very confusing that this one neighbor saw it as a problem. They're very small trucks. They're not these 18-wheeler trucks that you see on the highway. I just, and the neighbor started complaining. He called the inspections division. He called the city of Winston-Salem, and started complaining, this guy is parking here. And, I'm very confused, and we've been battling that for a couple of years. I feel, that it's unfair a lot of times, sometimes there's there's a property also I wanted to mention. There's a property a couple of blocks up from the Beeson Creek property that my parents own, and that is commercial property. It's going to be zoned as commercial property. A little bit up from that property is a gambling center. If you go a little bit up from the gambling place, there's a Dollar General store located on one block up from that big piece of commercial property that is maybe 2 blocks down from us. I mean, 2 blocks up from us. But I just feel like, why can't we rezone the property and make it legal for Mr. Craig Taylor to park his vehicles there? Again, we want to be in accordance with the city of Winston-Salem and not be fined or have that one neighbor call and say, well, he's illegally parked on the property. And we're just asking for a special request that please consider this request to rezone at HBL so we can legally have Mr. Craig Tucker park his vehicles there. Again, we're not looking to do anything different to the property. Before, my dad mentioned it was a nursery. And I remember, 25 years ago, I remember, me and my mom driving up there and buying, plants and soil. And it had its, buildings, the existing buildings that my parents, when my parents bought it. And, and now I'm here, I just don't understand.
Were there any other neighbors that you talked with, or was it just the one?
I spoke with a bunch of neighbors, and they were not in opposition of us changing it to HBL, but they did ask, well, why are you going to change it to HBL status? Because I told them, there's one neighbor in your neighborhood that has complained, and that is causing this confusion. And again, I do respect the neighbor that is in opposition. I do respect his or her opinion, but I do feel that Mr. Craig is not causing any noise or anything. His vehicles are very small. I wish I could meet this neighbor who is in opposition, but they don't know who it is. I even asked him, do you know who this person is that has been calling the inspections division and complaining? I don't understand. But here, my request is very simple.
Thanks. We got it.
Okay,
We got your
great.
request, but thanks for answering my question.
You're welcome.
Well, your request is not that simple, ma'am. You've asking for church, building contractors, lawn and garden, retail, police, and fire station. So it's not what you described it as. It's what
I do want to add, Mr. King, that we're not planning to do any of that.
Well, but you're asking for it, and that's what we're faced with. So all I'm saying. So we'll get back to the meeting. So anyway,
Yes.
All right. Anything else for us right now?
Yeah,
You'd
go
like to
ahead,
speak? Sure.
please.
How much time we have left?
Thank you.
Thank you.
About 5 minutes.
I'm Craig Taylor, 503 Julian Avenue, Archdale, 27263. I own Turf Appeal Landscaping, and I have about 6 landscape crews, 3 maintenance crews, irrigation crew, and heavy landscaping crew. And I park 3 of my trucks on this property. It's been a landscape business forever. As Mr. Lamb had mentioned, it's been there a long time. Has framework for greenhouses that are there. There was an old barn on the property and a small building that had been moved in. And when I leased the property from the Katzes, came in and put about $30,000 in upgrades to these buildings that were there in disrepair, holes in the roof. You know how a building will get from sitting there for forever. Put new siding on the buildings, painted the buildings, painted the framework to the greenhouses that were currently there. It's just a framework, but we painted them. Just generally just brought the property back up to a neat appearance. And my crews come in the mornings. The guys will come in. They'll come in about 5 vehicles. Usually they'll ride together coming in from Greensboro. They'll come in the mornings, get in their trucks, and they'll leave. And that's it. And then the property pretty much just sits through the day with no activity, very little activity. Every now and then I might go up and go into the building and get a piece of equipment and take it to wherever it might need to go. But there's no retail going on there. I don't have any customers coming in to select rock or mulch. I'm not selling anything to anyone from the property. So it's just basically our personal use to keep the vehicles on the property. And it's a convenient meeting spot for our guys to come and get together and then leave. Then in the evenings they'll bring the trucks back in and that's it. So there's no heavy anything going on the property. In fact, when I came there, I went and met with several of the neighbors myself. And they were very warm and receptive to the thought of someone being there and keeping the property mowed and in good condition. There's a lot of grass there, fescue, you know, like in a regular lawn. And when we got there, it was waist high and no telling what's living in that stuff. But we mowed it down, and the neighbors were very appreciative of that. And in fact, some of them asked for special access, as Ms. Katz just mentioned. There's a persimmon tree out there. Will you please allow us to come out there and get persimmons? Like, yeah, I mean, as long as we get some samples, but just being neighborly. And these people were really happy to, or at least they appeared to have us there. And occasionally we'll mow one of the neighbor's property. He's not in the best health, but we're friends on Facebook, and he'll send me a message. Hey, can you help me out? Sure, man. Yeah, Mike, I'll help you out. Whatever you need to do. So I mean, that's all we're asking is somewhere to keep our trucks. I don't want to beat this thing to death, but we're just parking trucks there, and there's not any retail going on. There's no in and out during the day. That's all we want. Any questions?
I can't come there, bring my pickup, and buy a load of mulch from you?
No, that's not the goal. No, sir. I would be happy for you to call me and ask for me to deliver you a load of mulch, but I'll go buy it from a retail establishment. That's how I operate, and bring it out to your house.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else like to speak in support of this? If not, I'll turn to the opposition. Mr. Shelton?
My name is Ricky Shelton. My address is 2259 Venus Road, 27284. And I just want to set the record straight. I have not complained. I am not complaining. I am not complaining about this one bit. I have not sent no complaints. But my concern is rezoning. Folks, this is a residential neighborhood. I've lived here on this street for 49 years. My dad is behind me. He raised me there, and I wound up building a house right beside my parents. So I've been there for a very long time. And my biggest concerns is when we do consider rezoning, that opens the door. They could close down in 6 months to a year. Then what's going to happen to that property? Like I say, it is surrounded with nothing but houses and farmland. Like I say, the biggest concern is rezoning commercial. Crime. We got to look at it. It goes up. Break-ins occur. It's just talking about the sweepstakes. I checked into the sheriff's office. The crime rates went up 26% on that sweepstakes building, about a mile up the road. That's not good for residential. Like I say, they keep a nice-looking area. I'm not complaining about what they're doing right now, but when we're talking about rezoning, that's where the different ball game is, because I can't control what goes in next, or what y'all would allow to go in next. Highway access to Highway 66. It's frustration getting on 66 right now, and when you're going to add trucks and trailers, that's even added frustration. With stopping and going, and like I say, my biggest concern is safety of my neighborhood. We have anywhere from little small babies to my size children, teenagers. And like I say, it's safety and not being able to protect in the future if we get this rezoned to a business. What's next? Because, this is a residential area. There's nothing around it but residential. I grew up in this neighborhood. And sure, it was, for 25 years, that land stayed empty. It was nothing on it. I can't even remember when I was growing up, when I think his name was Mr. Hopkins owned it, the nursery. He had got disabled elderly. He just let the land go. And that was 25 years. that it was nothing, zero, just open land. So like I say, my biggest concern is when we rezone it, that allows business. And we do not need that in our neighborhood. And that's the, that's.
Can I ask a question? Sure. You said you lived on what road?
Venus Road.
Huh?
Venus, Venus.
Just to the southwest
Just
of
to
it.
the
It's the road that stubs into it at its western
right.
edge.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, we live on a dead-end road, and this land backs up to the dead-end road.
Yeah.
And if it's rezoned, whoever owns it can open that road up.
Right.
And, we're going to have way too much traffic. We live on 11 houses on our road.
Yeah, I did notice when we rode back there that was a very residential area.
Very,
It
yes.
almost looked like it was agricultural.
It is.
Until you knew that
It is.
lot was.
There's tobacco land
Okay.
that backs up to our neighborhood. But like I say, if somebody opens that road up, that land to our dead-end road, we got more trouble. We got more trucks and trailers and issues coming in.
I do
So-
want to add to this.
Well, I'm
Well,
talking.
ma'am, we'll let him finish
Okay.
first.
But like I say, in dealing with the crime and the, even the wrecks on Highway 66, that is a big issue. It's a small 2-lane road. It's a residential road. Even though it goes to Kernersville and High Point, it's still surrounded but nothing but residential and curvy. And the land we're talking about is right in the middle of a big curve on Highway 66. And, I've been into emergency services for 27 years now. That's my career. That's what I do. I'm on duty. I'm a High Point City firefighter. And I grew up in Hornytown, which I was a firefighter at Hornytown Fire Department. There has been so many numerous wrecks right there in that half a block area. And I just don't want to add to it. Like I say, my biggest concern is keeping this residential. Because this is where, I raise my children. Hopefully, my kids will get my parents' house and stay there. So, but I definitely appreciate y'all. And
Thank you.
I have nothing against you guys. Nothing.
Ma'am, no, if someone wants, just, okay. Thank you, sir. Is anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? Then we'll declare the public hearing closed.
I got a question real quick. You've heard the tenant's intended use of the property. Is there any ag zoning that would allow what the tenant wants to do?
No. There's not.
What prohibits me under the ordinance from parking 3 trucks in my front yard in my residential neighborhood?
Nothing prohibits you from parking the 3 trucks there, but if you're running a landscaping business out of it, it does. Or
I'm not being argumentative for sure. I'm sort of, I just wondered what the real difference is between having a farmhouse with 3 trucks parked out in front and what he's doing. Now, I know that there may not be a use category that is so narrowly constricted that we can make it.
what he's doing is a services B use. That's what a landscaping business is. It's a services B use. If
And I think to get at the other angle of your question, if you have residentially zoned property, but you say we're going to have our regulations allow for any resident to lease their land to somebody else to run a portion of their business out of it, then you really don't have residential zoning anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if I wanted to allow my friend to park their 3 trucks there, I'm not leasing it to them. They're just parking it there.
Same
They're
thing.
not doing any business there.
Same thing. It's still considered, if it's residential property, it still would be considered a business.
Even if they're just parking there, they're not conducting business.
Yeah. Would
What if they're my trucks?
If they're your trucks and you have a home occupation permit, it's fine, but you can't have anyone that comes there and picks those vehicles up. If you have 3 people that live in your house that all work for your company,
Right.
and they're all related to you and they're all driving away from there going to a job, that's fine, but you couldn't have it where you have 2 or 3 other people come to your house and leave from that being their point of launch,
Gotcha.
for lack of a better term, to go to their job.
Thanks.
Is there any provision in the Board of Adjustments for a property that's lost its, okay?
There's a provision that allows for a change of use to a less intense use, but you can't have lost the nonconformity and do that.
Okay. All right. Would staff's opinion change if every use were stricken except for nursery, or not nursery, but...
Let me speak to that for a second. And I want to be clear. When Ms. Katzis came to the counter and we were advising her on this, as we do any person that comes in for rezoning, we always advise folks, hey, if you just get one use and that use goes out of business 3 years down the road, you're going to be right back here paying another $1,000 to go to the board and the commissioners.
Sure.
So we said, hey, you might want to think about just some other options that are tenants you might want to have on that property. So that's kind of how that list of uses got there. Now, whether or not Ms. Katzis wants to limit it to just that, that's her call, but that's kind of how those uses got there.
Well, the reason I mentioned limiting it so severely is because then it really would represent no change from the way it's been used for 40 years. You know, and it just seems like that means something.
Well, and to limit it even further to what she was talking about there, if what I think I heard, there would be no new buildings built there. There would just be truck parking there, and there would be, I think the zoning equivalent to what she was talking about, that if something happened later on, it would revert back. There is a reversion clause in the zoning ordinance that allows that when that use ceases, then you can add a condition. The petitioner can add a condition that when the use ceases, then the zoning reverts back to residential.
Use, but not ownership, because she mentioned ownership.
Yeah, it's not ownership, it's use. If it but if there were conditions added, that there would be no additional structures and that it would be vehicle parking only for a landscaping business, and that would even further restrict it.
Right.
I think in the end, though, what we as planners think about in terms of land use planning and zoning is, if you incrementally make decisions along a roadway to add a spot here because that by itself won't harm anything, and add a spot here, but that's sort of how a commercial strip gets established. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how 66 north of 40 got established, is one decision at a time.
I think most of us thought there would be 6 lanes to High Point, in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
It hadn't happened. That stayed the same down there.
Yeah.
Except there is a lot of traffic.
There's a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
What's this photo in front of us now?
These couple images that I just went through were taken in the summer prior to the receiving of the notice of violation that we took. That's not the way the site looks now, but those were taken, I believe, during the summer.
Mulch there
That's
or
correct.
something like that.
That's
at that
correct.
point.
Again, not for purchase. I think they used it in their operation. Yeah. It has not been a nursery, lawn and garden supply store, or retail. It's been a services use where they essentially just use it as their jumping off point, but they do keep materials and supplies and stuff there occasionally. So.
Now, even if we were limited to that, it still would be subject to the illegal spot zoning if we changed the zoning.
Right.
But having said that, parking 3 trucks there doesn't bother me. It's looked like been a lot more intense use down there over the years, and it looks better now than it did years ago. But I don't know how we go about doing what she's asked for, which is certainly different than what's on here. She made the comment about reverting back. She knew something about it. You and I didn't know.
Yeah, I just learned something. That's good.
Help them, staff.
Well, I guess the first question is uses. We've got a list of uses in front of you.
One use, park 3 vehicles.
I guess, she has to agree. It's her petition to what uses are being proposed on this. So I guess that's the first issue.
All right. Let's ask that question. Are you in agreement?
Yes.
To get rid of all those uses?
Except for services B.
Except for services B?
Is B correct?
Let's do that, yes. Yeah, I'm in agreement.
And again, the implication, just to have it in the record, is that if however many years down the road that use goes out of business and ceases, and a retail store or a lawn and garden store wants to come in, they're going to be right back with another kind of rezoning request to allow that use.
Unless they do the reversion clause.
Right. So the other question is
Okay,
reversion
Are you willing
clause.
to include the reversion clause? You know, let us add a condition to your petition that this property, once that use ends, once he stops using it that way, this reverts to what it is now, RS30. RS30.
And that ceases operation, I think, for a period of 1 year is generally the way we do that.
So he could have, this man could leave, and as long as within a year they found someone with the same use to occupy the property, then that use would still be allowed.
Correct.
What happens is exactly what's already happened.
Exactly. It's essentially under the reversion clause. It's similar to the loss of nonconformity. We go out. We have if something gets approved, we put it on we go out and check it annually. I mean, again, we may miss it by 364 days if it happened to close, a day after we miss it. But we put it on our calendar. We go out and check it, make sure it's still in operation. If it's in operation, we let it go. If we find that it's not in operation, we note that, start the clock. Take a look a year later, see if it's still not in operation. At that point is when the reversion would take place. We notify GIS and it gets reverted.
Do you understand the question that I've asked you? And that question is, are you willing to? Yeah, I'm sorry. Are you willing to add as a condition to your petition?
Okay, what would the condition be?
Well, the condition is, first of all, that the use goes down to just services B, which is just parking the, I guess, using the way you use it.
No retail sales. Just
no retail sales.
Any mulch and things like that?
Okay.
It still allows for the storage of that stuff.
All right. That's one question.
Okay.
Will you do that? You'll drop every other use. Second is, you understand, okay, will you allow us to put the condition on your petition that says this will revert? You'll lose that right to use it that way if it stops being used that way for more than a year.
Okay, so as long as Mr. Craig Tucker is on the property
Or somebody else using it the same way.
Okay.
It'll stay. He'll still be able to do that, and so will the successive user. But if he goes out and you don't find a tenant for the lot for a year, and you don't operate it like this for a year, you don't use it like this for a year, that use is no longer allowed, and you're right back where you are.
And it reverts back to RS30.
RS30, which is
Okay.
what it is right now.
Okay, you know what, I agree with that. As long as Mr. Craig Tucker stays on the property, he likes to keep it cleaned,
That's the main thing, to keep lights, water, and the property
Right.
clean. That's all.
But that condition can't go with a person. It has to go with the land.
use.
It goes with the use.
It's not that man. He might go away, and somebody else can
Right.
use this for the same reason, but there can't be a gap of more than 1 year. There can't be more than a 1 year gap between users using it that way.
But what if he wants to continually use it for many years?
That's wonderful.
Fine.
That's fine.
That's great.
Is that, can he use it, let's say?
He can use it for the next 35 years if he wants to.
Okay, yeah, I would yes, I would agree with that, yes.
Okay.
Gary, you
The
got
other thing
pictures of the buildings? Okay. Pictures of the buildings on, I want to see, let's talk a little bit about the activity.
Well, the other thing I heard her say is that there would be no additional buildings.
Yeah, I wanted to see what's on the site, and is this what's parked there now?
No, these, again, we're taking Chris and, you said in,
That were taken sometime June, July, August. I'm not exactly sure. September. I'm not exactly sure what the time frame was, but sometime this summer.
I mean, we're talking about parking vehicles, but there are buildings there. Now, I guess you got parts or supplies or something in the building. There's no outside storage.
Oh, the buildings existed when my parents.
I understand. I'm very familiar with the property.
You can have an office there. You can store equipment there. You can store materials there as long as it's in the operation of your business and you're not doing retail sales.
Okay. How about outside storage?
I don't think there's anything that precludes that, but I'll check real quick.
I mean, we got that. He says he's not doing retail sales there, but could he store mulch there and take it off site? I want to find out. I mean, because I don't want this thing to get too expensive. We start talking about parking vehicles. We're not talking about stockpiling rock and that sort of thing.
I want them to realize that this is a scenario, too. I want them to realize that this is a scenario. We're just setting this up. This doesn't guarantee anything until the vote's taking place. I mean, you know. And the other thing is, my question on this is if in your all's, what you're talking about, what would the buffer be?
It does allow outdoor storage.
It does allow outdoor storage. But what is it, type 4 buffer all the way?
What is it, type 4 buffer? You still have to put that in, right?
Yeah.
It'd be a type 3 adjacent HB to RS30. I think it's a type 3. It'd be industrial, it'd be a type 4.
And the services B, though, would include retail sales, right? Would allow that?
No.
It does not. So there's no retail sales. It'd be storage, but no sales.
Correct.
Parking vehicles. Okay.
I just have to say that I think this sets a terrible precedent. I think this is a really bad idea. I understand the concerns to accommodate the petitioner here, but this is a blatant spot zone. I don't see how we can justify doing this at all.
The way I would justify it is I know what the property used to look like, and I know what it looks like now, and I would ask Mr. Shelton again to come up, and I'd like your opinion on
And it's like I say, he keeps a clean area. And if we could get that imposed like y'all just said, I would be fine with it. They keep a clean place, a nice place. It looks better than it did 25 years ago. But my concern is just not allowing other businesses
We
to
understand.
build retail, to build any type sort of that right there. Is my only concern.
Yeah.
If you guys would let them run it like they are right now, we don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
Honestly, I think they're doing fine, but I just do not want retail in our neighborhood.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
But it would be HB. I mean, you can't go back. It's going to be HB.
It would be HBL.
L.
With the
With
sole use
sole-
of services
yeah.
B.
But it's still HB. I mean,
Well, yeah, it is, and it would still be subject to illegal spot zoning if it were challenged.
Yep.
It's, well, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to, I hate to speculate, but I don't think,
And it's not unprecedented that we have approved
Right.
in this type of situation, something that, can't even say the word, in similar situations, when it gets rural, it's not unprecedented for us to do
Well,
this.
I think the history of the site is what is influencing my decision. I grew up out in the country, and every once in a while, somebody had a store, and you were glad they were there. And so this absolute separation of things is not real life sometimes in what has happened.
now, there are some neighbors
You
would
still have
even
to protect.
be happy if they could pick up their mulch there, but we're not allowing that, so.
We're not going to allow that, though,
Yeah.
right?
And too, what Mr. Shelton said, I appreciate him stepping forward for that. And what you all said, and I'm familiar with the site also, and it's been brought up about out in areas, if this thing goes vacant or whatever, it'll probably just grow up and be a bunch of weeds again. So,
All right.
you're limiting them so much that, I understand what you're saying about the HB, and it is HB, but it's so limited. My goodness, they got one thing they can do, and if that person leaves and they can't find somebody within a year, it's going to revert back. And I'm just reiterating what you all have already put on the table.
Were you making a motion with those?
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I'm still concerned about storage of stuff and, bringing a dump truck in, bringing a loader, all that kind of stuff with, which is what we've had in our letter to us and other types of things. I understand what you all are trying to do and limited it, and if it was just vehicles there, okay, the low impact, but I don't think you can prescribe it enough to keep those kinds of things happening under that services B.
Can you restrict outside storage?
You could do a condition.
Yeah, as a condition that there be no outside storage?
Well, you can, but you have to be careful with that because, again, technically, the vehicles themselves aren't big. If they have any equipment or anything else on trailers that aren't enclosed, that would be outdoor storage. So it's kind of a... Generally, when you have anything heavier than just a van or a logoed car, whenever you start storing other trucks and vans and trailers and those kind of things, that gets into outdoor storage as well.
That outdoor storage when you get beyond that.
board members have any questions of anyone? Not, I'd entertain a motion for
Okay.
someone.
I'll make a motion, and it would be, I'll need some help with the conditions, but the motion would be, and the reason I'm making a motion to approve is because it's been that way for as long as I've been in Kernersville, just about. And it is actually, the way we're limiting it, it's less intensive. It's going to be less intensively used going forward than it was 6 years ago, or whatever the case may be. The neighbors really do not appear. I would think that the neighbors have an expectation that it was there. They may not want it there, but there doesn't appear to be anyone that feels real strongly about it, and especially the sole opponents, that the sole opposition has expressed that under the conditions that I'm going to include in my motion, that they will be okay with it. In terms of setting a precedent, man, if you can't distinguish this case from Dollar General going in next door, then you got a problem. I mean, I think this will be a very easily distinguishable case. So I think it doesn't do anything with respect to setting precedent. That's just my opinion, of course. So my motion is to approve. I would move that we recommend to the elected body that we approve it with the following conditions. One is that all uses are eliminated except Services B, that the property loses even that limited use, Services B, if the Services B use is unused for a period of more than a year.
So in other words, it reverts back to RS30.
Right, RS30, right. Okay. Was there another condition that we talked
Type
about?
3 buffer yard installed.
Say again? What?
Type 3 buffer yard.
Well, that's required.
That's required.
Well,
already.
okay.
It's not an additional condition.
Just clarifying, because you're really doing
Services B
something here
eliminates
that,
retail sales already, so there's no
that's
retail
already gone
sales.
too.
You're going to have to have DOT, I think you said.
That's
was
already
required.
imposed on it, so we don't
Well,
have to.
no,
The added condition that Gary showed you on the last
Okay,
slide.
then I recommend that we adopt that recommended condition.
And let's see, there was talk also about outdoor storage other than vehicle parking.
We determined we can't control that. I think that's what Chris is saying. We could not restrict that. That's what-
because of his
Is there a
equipment
condition
stored outside.
you could suggest,
Because anything beyond
Mr. Norby?
I think if you were clear enough that it involved outdoor storage of materials other than vehicles, would that?
Are you talking about materials versus equipment?
Yeah.
Is there
Yeah.
distinguished enough?
I mean, honestly, this is being selfish from a zoning enforcement standpoint. I would rather not get into that.
We got a great inspections department that can handle that.
That's right. Inspectors take care of that.
And then I also heard her talk about no additional structures.
No
so-
additional structures to be built. That'll be part of my motion. And I think that's it. I think that's it. That would be my motion.
I'm still inclined to talk about the outside storage materials.
Okay.
And I mean, our inspection's supposed to handle that.
So you want to put it in?
I mean, how do you?
Yeah. What, tell me, explain in a little bit greater detail so we can.
Well,
ask
just to
the-
keep that pile of mulch and piles of rock and all that, which, just no.
No outdoor storage of materials and equipment outside of the trucks and trailers associated with the Services B business.
That's what they asked for. That's all they asked for, so.
Is
that
that,
Magic
words.
is that correct? Do you understand that with my motion, I'm saying you cannot have any piles of mulch or piles of gravel, or all you can have is the vehicles?
Yeah, right now we have just overage of materials that we use for jobs. It's down near that large building, that photo.
Mm-hmm.
It's not much, just a few stacks of rocks that we'll bring back and occasionally somebody might need a replacement or something. But, there's no, we don't keep mulch and stuff out there. And that large pile of mulch that was there was for a large job. When you buy the mulch in bulk, you get a much better price. We can use that up, and it got gone within a matter of a couple of weeks.
Okay.
It's just
But under this condition, you wouldn't be able to do that at all.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It is, it's hard.
Be hard to please, but at least that's our intent.
Okay, all right. Then I include that.
Could they, things like bobcats or other equipment, would that be included in outdoor storage? If they're doing a job that has trailers with equipment on it?
Probably would, but I mean, that's still vehicles. We're allowing vehicles.
So it would be under vehicles?
Yeah.
If the backhoe or the bobcats were on the back of a trailer, then they would be fine. If they were just sitting out there on the ground, I think that's when you'd get into an issue. But I mean, it looks like they might have a building they could store them in if they didn't have them on their trailer. So I don't think there's probably an issue there.
And to Ms. Duncan, this still could be challenged as an illegal spot zone. We all understand that, you know. But
Can we get a clarifier on that? We have a condition for no additional structures. What about additions to the existing structure? I'm not trying to split hairs, but I just want to make sure we're clear if somebody comes in down the road, if that's what we're talking about or not.
No additions to the structures.
No addition.
No additions to the structures.
All right.
that's your motion.
That's my motion.
Is there a second?
A second.
Second, Mr. Lowell. Mr. Shelton, you understand what, are you still nodding approval?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, all right.
And I appreciate the board doing that.
Okay, thank you.
I really do. That means a lot. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion for approval with a bunch of conditions. Any discussion?
I just have to say that I still can go along with this.
We expected
that. It's just so hard to control. There's so many details and so hard to keep track of all this kind of thing. And I just think it sets a very bad precedent.
I wish the other opposition was here to clarify their issues with it, but they seem pretty adamant.
Okay. Any other comments? Have a motion? You're going to talk yourself out of this in a minute, ma'am. Just let us vote and you'll get it. Okay. Are there any other comments from the board? We have a motion for approval. All in favor? Opposed? It passes 7-2. Okay. Now, you have another question, ma'am?
Well, you know, we do have some conditions that
Come to the microphone, please.
Okay.
She'll get revised.
Okay, you're still opposed to us, even though we're limited. I mean, the only thing we're going to do to the property is park the vehicles. We're not going to add any additions to the buildings. We're not going to we're not going to use it as a retail store. Again, it's not, I think Mr. Shelton is very happy with his dad. Mr. Craig Tucker, he has a very simple landscaping company, 3 vehicles. Maybe if he had some extra equipment, we're allowed to store that equipment in one of the buildings, right? That could be a condition.
Yes.
But my question to Ms. Melinda, I mean, why do you oppose this?
But, ma'am, we've already voted.
Okay.
You got approval.
Okay.
I'd leave it alone. if I
Okay,
were you.
so, all right, okay. I
So-
mean, this is the first time I've been to a meeting
Right.
like this, and I found it very
So
interesting.
maybe just to be clear, the procedure from here is this is a recommendation from the planning board, which will then, the staff will put together the final staff report together with the minutes and the motion with the conditions, and that will all go forward with a copy to you all as the petitioners and to Mr. Shelton, who spoke. That will go forward to the county commissioners, and then the county commissioners will then schedule a public hearing where they will make the final decision on this.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Staff report.
Oh, yes. Okay. Couple things. One is you have, I believe at your place is a memo from me about planning website enhancements, and I'm not going to go through the details of that. I'll let you look at that at your leisure. But that's a follow-up to a report that we gave you earlier this year that talked about how we can, things that we can do can be more visible and understandable by people in the public, business community, and things like that. And one of the things that was identified is making some tweaks and enhancements to our website. So if you want to look through that, that identifies the things that we did. We got input from some of our internal and external customers and made a number of changes that we hope will be helpful to people there. So I won't go into any more of the details there given the late hour that we have. Area plan status, we had Northwest Area Plan final meeting coming up this December 14th. That's Wednesday. So after that, the plan will be wrapped up, be brought to you for briefing and then a public hearing in the early part of next year. George was your liaison to that group, has been at those meetings. The Northeast Suburban Area Plan had its first kickoff meeting last Tuesday evening. I think Alan, if I'm not mistaken, is the liaison to that one.
To which one?
The Northeast Suburban.
Thank you, Alan.
I think that was.
I didn't get an email about the meeting.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
I don't think I'm the.
Is it? Did I have that wrong, Kurt?
You have that correct.
Okay.
So we'll see if the email bounced back.
Oh,
Okay. Well, you'll get another notice about the second meeting that'll be in January. But unfortunately, we didn't have very good attendance at that first meeting. We only had 3 citizens come. And so we are redoubling our efforts to make some outreach to people, and hopefully with the help of the council member for the ward and her staff person there, we can get some better attendance at the following meetings. And then the South Suburban Area Plan is going to start in January, possibly January 17th. I think, Melinda, you were going to be the liaison for that. And we possibly will be having it at the Southside Library. We're trying to pin down those dates and locations with the council members that are involved there. So that's the 3 area plans that we're working on. And then the last thing I have for you is I talked to you last meeting about sign check right before Christmas. And obviously the normal day would be December 26th, which is a holiday. We talked about doing it on Friday, the 23rd at 8 o'clock. We are expecting a heavier than normal caseload coming in so far. So what we're a little nervous about is with the holidays coming, there's actually going to be 2 different holidays coming in that cycle that we're trying to get things done. We're wondering if those of you who might be interested in going on sign check, whether you would be okay if we did it on Thursday afternoon instead of Friday morning.
What is it, 22nd?
22nd at 1:15. Does that work for whoever is interested?
Is that because Mr. King has canceled the work session that day?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we won't have a work session
Wow.
anyway. Yeah.
So we're fine on that one.
Yes.
That works for me.
Okay. That'll just give us a little bit more time to do what we need to do.
What time you want to do it?
1:15?
1:15. Okay.
On Thursday, the 22nd. Yes. Okay. All right. And that is it for sign check. I just want to, again, take this opportunity to thank you all for your service this year. Many hours, much dedication. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Chris, thank you.
Yeah, we've got 16 more shopping days, so make sure you get your shopping done. And I'll make a motion. We adjourn. Merry Christmas to all.
All right, we're adjourned.
Well.